welcome back to my channel, or welcome if it's your first time here. I'm Lindsay, and I figured I should do a video talking about my opinion / reacting to bookish trends, because as I've started this booktube channel, or transitioned my channel into being a booktube channel, I have done little videos here and there talking about my favorite books and my opinions on different things, but I haven't really done one where I've talked about my opinions on bookish trends specifically. So that's what this video is. I'm not going through a tag or anything or a post about this. I am just coming up with what I've seen, what trends I have noticed, and just talking about how I feel about them. So let's get into it. So the first trend I'm going to talk about is reading goals. I have a video more or less talking about this, but to sum it up, I do think this trend of reading goals and like the Goodreads reading goals, it puts a lot of pressure on people to read a certain amount of books a year, to the point where they may not be thoroughly enjoying the books that they are reading. Especially when you see creators whose full-time job it is to read, saying they've read like 100+ books a year. 100+ books a year. It may make you feel like you're not reading enough, but if you've read 2 books in the past year and you call yourself a reader, or you want to call yourself a bookworm, whatever you want to call yourself, book lover, that's what you are. I personally don't set a reading goal for myself at all for the beginning of the year, for whatever. I track what I read on Storygraph, mainly so that I can, at the end of the year, when I do a video about that, I can be like, okay, I did read this book this year. But truly, with reading goals, I'm just not about them. I mean, I think I read 25, 20, I don't know how many books I read last year, but I've already read 20 this year, because there are so many varying life factors that contribute to how much you can or can't read, that sometimes you just don't read as much, and that truly doesn't make you any less of a reader. So just in general, to sum it all up, what I've been repeating is that I'm not about reading goals and the pressure it puts on people to read so many books to make themselves feel like they can call themselves a reader and all that kind of stuff. I think it's mainly a social media thing. All in all, I urge people either to not make a reading goal, or to at least not compare yourself to other people's reading goals on social media. Just like with everything on social media, just don't compare what people are putting out there, because also, I've said this in my other video, people could be lying. You never know. So yeah. Okay, the next trend is DNFing. I'm calling this a trend because before, I think, BookTok or BookTube or whatever, wherever this phrase came from, I had never heard the phrase DNF, which means like did not finish, I believe. And I personally have had a lot of trouble with this trend, but not because I think it's bad. I actually think it's a good thing to DNF a book that you're really not liking, and to be able to say, hey, this isn't for me, instead of sitting there and hating on that book and hating on reading in general, because reading is supposed to be enjoyable. So finding books that you like, because I truly believe that there are books out there for everybody's taste. So instead of suffering through a book that you don't like, I fully support DNFing. I need to get better at it. Recently, I have DNF'd a book. I just always felt bad, like I wasn't giving the book a fair chance, and I feel like I've heard other people say the same thing, but truly at this point in my life, I need to start DNFing more, and I am on board with this trend. I'm trying to get myself on board with the trend more literally. Okay, the next trend is describing books in tropes. You see this a lot in reels, in shorts, in TikToks that I only see in reels and shorts. But anyway, a lot of books people will recommend via the trope, and I actually saw a tweet about this that said BookTok made a lot more sense to me when I realized that it was people who didn't go through that fanfic reading phase in middle school or high school. They haven't gone through that Wattpad phase, so now they're doing it with books, and that's why they describe books with tropes. And this trend made a lot more sense to me when I realized that. I mean, I myself, I will say, I have talked about tropes in my book reviews, in my book recommendations. I have mentioned tropes. I find myself doing this as well. So I mean, I read fanfic in middle and high school, so that could also be why that tropes are very much in my head. But I try to give more than just tropes, because there is so much more to books than their tropes. Personally, when I'm seeing someone else's review, I like to hear more than just the tropes, so I try to do that with my reviews and recommendations as well. But I'm not like against the trend, and I'm not going to be a hater to people who are doing it, because I fully understand it, especially in things like shorts and reels, which are shorter videos. But for the most part, when it comes to an actual review and recommendation, and yeah, like I will talk with my friends about our favorite tropes. I think that's something everybody does, but when it comes to a book, I'm not going to just boil a book down to the tropes that are in it, because like I said, there is so much more to every book. That is not that I'm against it. I do use tropes as well, but I do think there should be more than just the tropes when it comes to describing a book. The next trend that you'll see a lot on like Bookstagram and even in shorts and reels and whatever is annotating books via color coordination. Personally, I really like this, because that's how I annotate books. I have a video talking about how I annotate books more in depth, but when I am doing something like with The Folk of the Air, that's the book that I showed. Let me get it out. So I just pulled the closest one, and it doesn't have as many, but like, see, I have this green one, a yellow one, another green one. So what I have with these tabs is they coordinate with a specific analyzation or a specific prediction that I had or something like that. Usually, I think all of these are analyses, except, and then the pink ones are my favorite parts. So with my color coordination, it's usually that each one means something to me. Like it's a specific, oh, here is this analysis, and these are all the different parts that back up my analysis, and that's why those colors are here. That was kind of convoluted, but I hope you understand. I also have matched the cover before with things like The Ballad of Never After. You can see that all of my tabs are pink and purple, so this just kind of worked out for this book that I was able to make it all this color. But for the most part, it's a lot of different colors, and this is the only time I've ever been able to match a cover to the book, because I love pink. That's just, I was able to do that. For the most part, it's not a matter of matching the cover, but I do, like, I'm not gonna lie, I like the way it looks when things color coordinate in that way. And when people are, the one thing I don't do that I see people do is a lot of color pen with their annotations. Like they'll do like pink blue hearts or whatever, and I love how that looks. Or they'll underline this part in pink and this part in blue, and that might go with kind of what I do with the different analyses being the different colored tabs. But I just can't personally write in books in pen, mainly because I will erase things I say sometimes and then write it smaller. Or just write less or something. But yeah, that's just my personal way of annotating, and there's a whole longer video on that, and yeah, that's that. The next trend is buying special editions of books. Honestly, all I can say for this is you do you. I feel like I can't really give an opinion on how other people are spending their money. That doesn't feel like my place. I personally have a couple editions of The Folk of the Air because I wanted the Barnes & Noble editions, but that's a thing I'll talk about in a second. I would rather spend my money on book merch, like art, or like I have a Folk of the Air tote bag, and that's just personally what I would rather be spending my money on than special editions. But I have the Barnes & Noble version of The Folk of the Air because of those excerpts. So I definitely cannot blame people for buying more than one edition of their favorite books when there are things like the Barnes & Noble exclusive editions, which I just like, that's a whole other thing that I kind of have beef with. That's like, I don't know if it's a trend. I don't know if that's a thing I feel like it's a thing that's been around for a long time, but it's just something that's always going to irk me a little bit. And I think that's more of an issue with publishers and that kind of stuff, that it's like, oh, you get this Barnes & Noble special edition, and it also feels kind of mean to like international fans of the books, because then you're gonna have to pay international shipping if you don't live in America and can't access Barnes & Noble more easily, or you might not be able to access it at all. And that's just a beef that I have that is a little tangential, but I just personally cannot blame people for buying special editions when it's like, oh, you want an extra chapter, or you want this person's point of view, or you want Carden's letters. Like I wanted Carden's letters, and the other ones have special chapters, and it's like, this is why people buy special editions, because I want to be able to access that. And usually, yes, you can find it online, but I like having physical copies of things just because, I don't know, probably because I grew up before the internet, and so I feel like if it's on the internet, I don't own it, and then I can lose it and never have it again, and I want to be able to have it forever. The last trend is another, this is all social media stuff you see more so people posting about on Bookstagram and that kind of stuff. And I mean, you'll see it sometimes in the background of people's videos. And this is aesthetic bookshelves. And I love the way they look, but it could not be me. I could never be someone that color coordinates their books, or just like everything looks so perfect and like the books look untouched, and the way that they're organized is just, they look, okay, the way I describe it is my bookshelves, I mean, like right now I definitely don't have the room for aesthetic bookshelves. Books go where they fit, and I have piles of books, like this is where things are. But even when I get more space and I can have bigger bookshelves, I don't see them being, again, the way I describe it is I think my bookshelves look more like a library, and will always look more like a library than a bookstore. They're not gonna look perfect. The books look loved, and the bookshelves are just not, again, not color coordinated. There's not one turned out. There's nothing like that pretty about it. Sorry. I like to be organized. It's organized, not perfect. That's what mine look like. They're organized in a way that makes sense to me too, more so than it's like by color. By author I can do, but it's not gonna be like alphabetical either. So, and also you have to consider that I'm 5 feet tall, so the heights of where I put things on my bookshelf is a little more important to me too, but not just as much as like the way it's so organized. And then I just said it'll be like a library, but I'm not going to do alphabetical order, but like still, okay? It's organized chaos. That's what we're going to say. But that's all I have for this video. If you like books and reading and fantasy romance, other genres I mix in there as well, please like and subscribe. I try to do monthly reading ramp-ups, but next month I'm gonna have May and June together. I also do series reviews and reading vlogs. I'm gonna try to do some more. So yeah, so just stick around for that kind of stuff. This will probably be one of the last few ones I do that's just like my opinion on things that aren't specifically books. But yes, okay, I don't know what else to say here other than bye!